Hey everybody, we're here to get some input on The Rock. We think it's been, almost 30 years since The Rock has come out. We think there's a really good opportunity here to remake this film and do it a little better. The Rock is a great movie, but we have a script writer that we work with time to time named Guy Ferrari, and we thought we would turn it over to him, commission him to noodle on it, to come up with what he thinks is a good rewrite for The Rock, and we're gonna find out what he's got going.
Oh, hey guys! Thanks for giving me the opportunity to take a look at The Rock project. I did a lot of soul searching. I watched The Rock about a dozen times. It's just going to be real hard to improve on that formula. Like maybe I could do with a little less implied prison rape. Maybe I'd try to add a little bit more dimensionality to Stanley Goodspeed's girlfriend/fiance, but ultimately it's like the perfect quintessential 90s action film. I don't think it'd be improved, but I do think it's time for a sequel. I mean, all the principles are still alive. Don't know for how much longer that's going to track. So here's my pitch. Nicolas Cage and Sean Connery reprise their roles as Stanley Goodspeed and John Mason, and are joined by Chris Hemsworth as brash SAS agent Nigel Munt. Now, they're tasked with stopping a group of rogue SAS agents led by a Colonel Ridgewell Hawks, played by Liam Cunningham, you may better known as Sir Davos Seaworth from Game of Thrones. These men have seized Big Ben, taken hostages, and threatened to launch rockets filled with nerve gas over London unless the Queen of England herself allows Brexit to happen immediately. Really excited to see what you think of the script. After you've had a chance to look it over, send me some notes. Call me. Let's do lunch.
All right, so we got our hands on the script. Aaron, I think we should just take it point by point here.
Yeah.
Go over everything, kind of in chronological order here.
Yeah. I mean, we're gonna do is just read through his whole treatment here. There's a lot to consider.
Yeah, we've read it once before.
Yeah,
so we know what we're in for. But man, it's a ride.
Essentially, this is a British bent The Rock called The Clock.
Which I think is a great start.
It's a great start. Yeah. Like you got the rhyming scheme. It's and
you can almost hear Sean Connery say the clock.
Well, welcome to the clock. So it opens with because in the American version, these aggrieved army patriots are upset because the United States intelligence community and armed services community has turned their back on their fallen comrades and has refused to pay out their widows' death bonuses because they've been involved in secret. These rogue SAS soldiers are mad because so the Queen of England, she sees the incoming financial and social catastrophe that's known as Brexit coming. And by the way, Guy Ferrari, not an English political historian. If you got any problems with his take on English politics, you got to take it up with the man.
Aaron and I definitely experts on the subject, but Guy Ferrari not so much.
Yeah, I got to excuse him. He's had one too many shots of donkey sauce, and he's really feeling himself. But the premise is, English people, hoodwinked perhaps by the Brexit vote, have a little bit of buyer's remorse, but there's all this hand-wringing of what can be done. The Queen of England sees how unpopular it is and how much devastation it'll do to her beloved homeland. And she's like, if you can't use royal prerogative for this, what the hell can you use it for? And she just says no. She uses the royal prerogative to say no, dissolve parliament, call for another referendum. Brexit looks like it's going to go down in flames.
Here's the thing I love about this is that in The Rock, they cast Ed Harris's character as sort of sympathetic, right? And here I feel like it's something that maybe isn't quite as noble and maybe even stupider, but it's at least like the will of the people being done, right?
Yeah,
like all the polls are showing people want Brexit. Like the public vote comes in, they want Brexit, and the Queen just overrides it. Well, that feels like injustice to me. And so this guy can at least be a little bit sympathetic that he's maybe trying to get justice done.
This Colonel Ridgewell Hawks that Ferrari is cast as Liam Cunningham, Sir Davos, he didn't go to the Falklands and fight to have the Queen just willy-nilly override the will of the people, like holding a vote over and over and over again until you get the correct result he sees as fundamentally undemocratic, which it's not like he doesn't have a point. Like sometimes the will of the people is dumb and uninformed and contrary to what one would want. But you just can't have this is going back to the days of the monarchical rule. He's not having it. So he decides now simultaneously. We live in an alternate future where 2018, the rest of the world's getting their shit together, and we've decided that we really got to eliminate nuclear weapons, chemical weapons, biological weapons. And in fact, the one that the world most easily agreed to was chemical weapons.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
they're horrible. I mean, look at that first scene in The Rock.
Oh, yeah. That's terrible. So
melt your face off.
So they're taking all this stockpile of gas, and instead of like burying it deep in the sea or burning it with thermite plasma, they've decided to symbolically launch it into the sun.
Okay.
And
yeah, this is maybe my favorite part of the script.
This is why I bring Guy Ferrari. They've contracted with SpaceX, and they're going to have all those last vestiges of this super VX nerve gas going to be launched into space towards the sun. And Colonel Hawks, under the guise of a safety inspection at the launch facility, reroutes the rockets, because these are the reusable Elon Musk rockets, and as the world watches in horror, these rockets turn around in mid-flight and reverse land on the roof of Big Ben. Simultaneously, these SAS soldiers have taken Big Ben. You see shots of them like coming in oversized parkas, and there's guys that are dressed as maintenance men, and they're closing off the elevators, and they're turning people away from all the staircases. And once they are sure, because these guys are supposed to be politically sympathetic, they're not madmen, they're not wanting to kill a bunch of people. Or at least they don't want to kill civilians at this point, because they think it'll turn the city against them. Once they clear the staircases and elevators, they use explosives to blow the staircases and elevators up.
Yeah.
They completely cut the top third of Big Ben off from the rest of Westminster Abbey. But it is essentially, a reverse rock situation, because they've successfully, instead of going and taking over an island, they've turned this tower into an island unto itself.
Right. And
they've got the VX nerve gas, and unless the Queen herself delivers the Brexit paperwork signed and authorized and irrevocable to the head of the EU Central Commission, which probably is a position that doesn't exist.
That's what Guy Ferrari calls it. So
that's what Guy Ferrari calls it. Again, what the man has in action pizzazz, he doesn't make up for in his deep historical, political bedrock, whatever you want to call it.
You can't have it all.
His political science. No. You can't have your donkey sauce and your reasonable moderation in one bottle.
So then we get to the scene where in the original it was Nick Cage, right? And he's introduced in this glass tube with the bomb and the gas, and we find out that he's a chemical expert. I feel like the place where Guy Ferrari really skimped out on this treatment is he didn't really give us a good idea of how we were going to introduce our SAS operative, which is kind of the soldier counterpart to Goodspeed in this movie.
Yeah.
He didn't give us a scene to actually introduce that character. He just said we're going to introduce him.
Son of a bitch. So he just comes in like Michael Bain. Maybe that's what he intended. Like he just comes in like Michael Bain does, and he just becomes a much larger character from that point forward.
Yeah, I mean, all you need to do is show that he's a really good soldier, right? That's pretty easy to do.
Maybe he's called in because there's a terrorist situation at a big bank in London, and we're introduced to him like rescuing all the hostages. So we see that he's well qualified. These high pressure, special forces situations where you can go, and that there's people been captured, because there's a whole bunch of tourists, obviously, in Big Ben and Westminster Abbey that's been taken prisoner in the top of the tower. So he's an expert, and he's also got a young English lady at home. That's he's got the love affair. She's it's the Rock.
The same. It's exactly the same, except this guy's name is Nigel Munt.
He's Nigel Munt,
and maybe the most British name ever.
And they drive on the wrong side of the road. So but everything else is pretty much the same. So we see that the Queen's informed the situation by the head of MIA. The Queen is played by, of course,
MI5.
MI5.
Yeah.
MIA is the Indian lady that raps about paper airplanes. MI5, he's the head of MI5, played by Sean Connery. He's, after he got out of the Rock, he fled to England and was given a hero's welcome. And he's risen in the spy ranks, and he's now head of MI5. Dame Judi Dench is the Queen of England, and he's given her, a situation report. And the thing is, now that humanity has turned their back on chemical warfare, like for the last decade, research in chemical warfare has gone. It's like it's like being a coal miner. Like,
I mean, no kids are coming out of school going, "I'm going to be a chemical."
Right. Like the writing's on the
chemical
wall.
weapons engineer.
The writing's on the wall. This gig ain't going to be around for much longer.
Yeah.
And he reluctantly suggests that he knows where, in fact, they can find a chemical weapons expert here in London, because it turns out Stanley Goodspeed recovered the CIA secret film that Mason told him about in the first movie. And it's not like America's more chill about their national secrets getting out. So he was instantly hounded. He fled the country and landed in London, asked for asylum. And the British government, instead of it's the late 90s. I don't know if we want to pissing off our American brothers and sisters over this. And they just black hole him.
Yeah.
But he's not held in like a maximum security prison. He's just like, because he's Stanley Goodspeed. Like, he thinks this is bullshit, but they give him internet access, all free run to the library. He's got a pretty cushy minimum security. He just promises not to try to escape, and he's a good prisoner. He thinks it's all bullshit, but he's kind of wasting away in his minimum security prison.
I don't think we can forget the daughter. The next point, in the original The Rock, Sean Connery he escapes and he goes to visit his daughter in London, and we have the perfect setup in the original here, because Nick Cage's girlfriend and I think wife by the end of this was also pregnant. So she would be just about 30 years old at the time that this is taking place.
Yeah, totally. And she came to London too. She was fleeing from America just as much.
Right.
They were killed in a short-lived gunfight, because Stanley Goodspeed's not very, very good at gunfights. She was killed, leaving this daughter to be an orphan, and she's been raised by the state. But she knows the backstory of her father, and she kind of hates, because she blames her father for getting her mother killed. It's again exactly like The Rock, except for it's in London. So yeah, Stanley got his daughter in London, and they use that as leverage to get him to participate in this. It's a daring raid, but it's
the thing I like the most is how he escapes.
Yeah,
from the maximum security prison, or the minimum security prison that he's in.
Because he's not a trained SAS agent. He has he has not acquired any more physical skills than he had at the end of The Rock.
No, he can't fight his way out of this.
This is classic Ferrari. What's he do, Jim?
So over the course of his stay here, and I don't know, he doesn't specify in the script whether this is before or after he gets commissioned to do this job.
I think they're in the room. They've brought him in, and they're pitching the thing,
much like in the first one.
Yeah, and he's
and he says that the whole time he's on and on about, like, I really got to take a piss. I really got to go to the bathroom here.
But they're
and he's got a cold. He's like sniffling and sneezing, and it's kind of this weird mishmash. You don't really understand what's going on until later that night. He emerges from the corner of his cell with some kind of bag full of just
some kind of weird chemical,
weird yellow liquid, right? And he goes out, he calls a guard over, and the guard comes over and he holds this bag up high and he says, "This is filled with some bad shit, man."
It's like trucker toilet sarin.
And he essentially describes what VX gas will do to you. Yeah. Like he does in the first movie.
Like I spill this and it's going to...
And you're going to convulse, you're going to break your spine, but after your skin melts off.
Yeah.
And this guy freaks the fuck out, and and Nick Cage smashes it on the ground.
Right.
And then he starts convulsing.
Yeah.
And foaming at the mouth.
Just liquid foam shooting out of his mouth. He falls to the ground crumpled.
And this guard is freaked the hell out. And so he goes...
He knows who this guy is. He's this chemical weapons expert.
So he evacuates the entire prison.
Yeah, he starts running. The whole thing goes like a red alert. And then we see after the prison complex is empty, we see Nick Cage just get to his feet, wipe his mouth off, and he just walks out of the prison.
He's just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then our Womack character, our Mason, who's now Womack, comes in after that to come get him. And he looks at it and he knows what's up. Yeah. And he walks over to it and he puts his finger in it and he tastes it. And what does he say?
He goes, Goodspeed wasn't foaming out the mouth. They just used Alka-Seltzer. And he picks up the torn cold medicine. It's just cold medicine. And he goes, this isn't sarin gas. He smells it like, it's piss. And then it ties back to the fact they wouldn't let Goodspeed out
ingenious.
Piss. Yeah,
ingenious.
So he goes out, of course, first quickly finds his daughter in London and tries to tell his version of the truth to her. She's not sure. Mm-hmm. Again, this is exactly like The Rock, except for they have a different kind of high-speed chase. Munt is already involved. He's at the prison, and Goodspeed walks off. He finds a I don't know why this would be close to the prison, but he finds a Aston Martin Valkyrie concept car, like one of those powerful, sexy sports cars in the world. Right. And he drives 100 miles an hour down the streets of London to try to find his daughter. Meanwhile, Munt, the best he can commandeer is a beige Volvo. 70s diesel Volvo.
Right. Perfect callback.
But
here's the thing. I mean, Nick Cage has been in prison. Goodspeed has been in prison for 30 years.
Oh, yeah.
He was never really that good of a driver anyway.
No.
And so he's out of practice and he's in an overpowered car. He can't stay on the road.
Right.
He's just swerving everywhere.
Right.
And Munt in this beige Volvo is actually a really good driver.
Yeah.
So he's keeping up with him.
He's been trained like combat, special forces driver.
Like an Italian job kind of thing.
Yeah.
Chasing after a complete buffoon.
Right. So he all figures it out, tracks him down. Again, exactly like The Rock, except for it's the clock. Mm-hmm. And
then the action movie begins, right?
Action movie begins. So we are, this is the opposite of The Rock. So in The Rock, you sent in a SEAL team underneath through the ocean to penetrate The Rock from below. This, we're going to have a very high it's coincidentally, it's a moonless night. London is draped in heavy fog. It's rainy. They're going to do a high altitude to avoid because Liam, the bad guy, Hawks, has set up a rudimentary radar system in all the corners of Big Ben. And to defeat that, they're going to do a very high altitude halo jump.
Yeah.
So these guys are going to jump out in the stratosphere with breath masks, and they're coming down a very small corridor that's exactly the footprint of Big Ben to avoid detection. And of course, Nick Cage is not good at this. There's hijinks. His parachute doesn't deploy. Hemsworth has to save him. It's a nip and tuck thing. But they land. The SAS team manages to land successfully on the roof of the clock. Then what happens, Jim?
So there's a small access hatch up there, and the team comes in, and they think they got the drop on him, right? Just like in the original, except one of the guys going through the access hatch trips on some device. He gets his foot caught.
It's like a cable, or maybe he knocks something that gets stuck in a gear.
Yeah, it's not real specific, but you know,
and no one thinks it's any big deal. It's just they keep on about their mission.
Unfortunately, that has set Big Ben 1 minute fast, and the SAS guys notice that the clock has moved, and they somehow, I guess they know a lot about clocks. They understand where in the system they must be, and they send their guys to intercept.
Yeah, like someone's saying, Colonel, we've got until it's 11:59. And
right. That gives us 3 hours and 42 minutes exactly before we have to launch the rockets. And he says, not by that clock, it doesn't.
Yeah, and they see
pointing at Big Ben.
It's the the face of Big Ben that must mean it's the Northwest Passage. It's Northwest Maintenance Tunnel. So, of course, all the bad, the opposition SAS guys go. And, again, it's exactly like The Rock. Yep. Except for Liam Cunningham is shouting, "You're up there and I'm down here." And just everyone's killed except for Munt and Goodspeed.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of soul searching. Goodspeed wants to get out of here and save his daughter, although I don't think he knows how, because it's I don't know. I don't think Ferrari did enough work on this aspect, because
I think he leaned a lot on the original movie.
Because here's the thing.
To just say, he wants to protect his daughter who's in London.
We talked about in the Rock review that one of the few flaws the Rock has is a little fat on the bones. Like it doesn't need to be 2 hours and 15 minutes long. So maybe we just dispense the whole like will they won't they kind of scene. And like Goodspeed is like all about like stays focused. This is a setback, sure, but maybe that's what it is because Hemsworth is like he's always had his team. He's an individually great soldier, but he's always had his team together. He trains with the team. He doesn't think they can do this now. Like this Liam Cunningham, he's the hero of the Falklands War. He's like, I just can't do this. But in a twist, Nick Cage, the guy who's fucked the prom queen and who has done this before, is like, look, there's no way. Like we're gonna lose. Like I've done this before. You can do this. Let's do this. So then it's like, you want action set pieces?
I mean,
oh boy,
there's gears rotating and gunfights through the
gears and like every once in a while you'll see the Queen like with binoculars looking at Big Ben, and like the lights of Big Ben will from inside will light up from the gunfire, and like a window will shatter, and she'll be like, that's a damn it, Mason. That's a cultural landmark. It can't be destroyed. And he's like, would you rather have 500,000 Londoners die? And they're like having this bitchy fight.
And then, weights and clocks going up and down, and people are riding them
and counterweights. And,
big pendulum in there for whatever reason.
Right. So you got like clock all this. Stuff. There might be a laundry cart fight somewhere in there because, why not? There's there's like all kinds like the top parts of Big Ben. There's like some kind of weird steampunk boiler rooms that are inexplicably still steaming decades after they've replaced it all with like modern innards. But we get to the last act.
Yeah,
got to the last act where all the fireworks happen.
So in the last act, I love that he's tied it all back to the clock. He really worked the clock, and much like the original the Rock movie really leaned into the fact that it was taking place on the Rock.
Right.
It's all about the clock. So in the last act, the bad guy realizes, well, it's too late for me.
But they've stolen the guidance out of the rockets
all the rockets except for one have their guidance gone. He decides he's going to set the last one to just detonate. It doesn't need to be launched. It doesn't need to go anywhere. It's going to detonate.
It's going to kill him, but it's at the top of Big Ben, so that the poison will disperse and kill enough Londoners to get his revenge. Because here's the thing: the crucial thing about Liam, about Colonel Hawks, is he's always been a little bit of a bastard. He might have been a little war crimesy in the 80s. He's not like a man of honor. Like I think that. Like everything about the Rock says that like General Hummel's not going to kill these civilians. Like you always think that there's a chance the Colonel Hawks is going to do something like this. It's not rogue elements of his own men. It's just he himself. This is another twist from. So it's just not exactly like the Rock.
And a shortcut, yeah.
And a shortcut too. Yes.
Because you can take about 15 minutes out if you don't have that conflict.
Exactly.
So yeah, he sets the missile to just go off. There's no way to override it. So the only thing that they can do is destroy the gas, much like they were trying to use the bombs from the planes in the first movie to destroy the gas at the end.
Right.
They're going to do that now. But they only have one way to generate the heat and the pressure that would be enough to destroy this gas.
Right, because there's no time for an airstrike, and plus it's in the middle of London. Like you do a thermite plasma strike on Big Ben, it'd wipe out roughly as many Londoners as just the gas.
Yeah, it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
So the only way they have to destroy the gas is to overclock Big Ben.
Yeah.
And that means to make the clock run so fast that the gears spin and the coils
build up all this kinetic energy.
Right, to build up the friction and the heat needed to get to a certain temperature. I'm sure we'll outline it in the final draft.
Yeah.
But to get to the heat, you need to destroy this actual gas.
Yeah, the heat and the pressure of the gears expanding and pushing against each other. If Munt can slip this still elegant string of pearls configuration of VX nerve gas into the cogs at the exact precise moment that they fuse together, then the sarin gas will be destroyed and simultaneously contained, and then we'll have our happy ending. But,
so obviously the bad guy tries to stop them.
Yeah, like you can see like Munt's got his hand out and he's stretching and like the thing's whirling and it's blowing his hair and his uniform back and it's Big Ben's like vibrating and there's like shots of Judi Dench losing her shit because the hands on Big Ben are just spinning like a fucking blur.
And Hawks has got him by the hair. He's trying to keep him from dropping it.
Yeah. Hawks comes in out of nowhere. You think he's dead, and then there's a struggle, and he's got the VX in one hand. He's got Hobbit, like he gets the upper hand, and Hawks falls into the symbol, and he just gets like salsified. Like blood and like I wanted to.
We're
be
gonna
like,
show the vaporization that they describe in the last movie.
Yeah, like have you ever seen one of those big mechanical, like what they dump a whole car in and just has these massive blunt metal teeth that grinds it into like and like you usually see like the car gets pulled in there and then the tires and then there's always like the last bit of like engine that's like rolling on the top until it gets I want that to happen only with Liam Cunningham's body.
His body.
Wait. Do we actually buy Liam as a badass? Like,
here's the thing: I buy Liam as the sympathetic villain.
He's Davos Seaworth. He's your reasoned, seasoned, salt of the earth, common sense, chief of staff. I don't know if
I'm not sure I buy him as a badass.
Soldier, especially like a slightly evil soldier, a morally compromised soldier.
No, I think we can actually do better with casting, and I think we don't even have to stray from the Game of Thrones averse.
Okay,
we can simply recast Ian Glenn.
Oh, that's Jorah Mormont.
Yeah, I think he's got both sides of the coin here.
Yeah, he can play hero. He's believable like war hero, but he also has a mean streak to him.
Yeah, so we're gonna mark that out, put Ian Glenn in there.
So go back and re-envision everything. Cunningham is now Glenn.
Yeah.
But I want these gears to kind of like chew him up real. Like it's very. The gears are going so fast that he's kind of like bouncing above it, but they're stripping little bits of his flesh off a little bit at a time. Like there goes a hand, and then the whole arm gets peeled off, and he's still screaming the whole time as his like stumpy body is like rolling around until it just gets. But he just ends. It just looks like spaghetti sauce on the other side.
Yeah, it finally grips him and pulls him through, and then it's over.
That's classic Guy Fieri going broke for the gore.
Yeah, and then obviously Goodspeed is going to drop. Or Munt is going to drop the VX into the gears, and the friction will destroy it, and we have our happy ending, right?
Yeah, the main gears they're like white hot, they fuse together. Like all the faces of Big Ben shatter,
just blow off,
hands
into
go
the
flying
Thames.
off into the Thames River. A couple hit Buckingham Palace, and the Queen's like bitching about that, and Mason
maybe
has
it
to
lands
calm
on her
him
dog.
down.
I don't know.
It takes out a corgi.
Yeah, you might not be able to do that.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's too far.
Ferrari taking out a corgi. That's you can turn Ian Glenn into chunky salsa. You can't kill a corgi.
No,
you just can't. Then we got the happy ending. We got the score playing the like sweet little reed pipes, and Godspeed gives Munt a note. Munt agrees to like let him, essentially say that like he got this because like Big Ben is fucked up. Like Munt barely survived. He's gonna say, "Hey, I'm gonna let you slip away in the confusion and say that you got killed."
Right. Say that you got ground up in the gears.
Godspeed hands him a note again, just like the end of the Rock, and says, "Hey, if you fancy a holiday with your lady after this, go to the oldest Benedictine monastery in Northumbria." Check out the third pew on the priest's left-hand side.
Right, implying that he's hidden the microfilm there.
Yep. And, Mason comes up to the top of the rubble of Big Ben and talks to Munt, and he is wryly informed that Goodspeed was vaporized by the spring and coil assembly of Big Ben.
Yeah.
And of course, Mason's in on the joke. He's like, "Oh, I got vaporized by the gears, eh?
Didn't know a body could do that.
It'd be miraculous to survive something like that." Because, he's in on the joke. And he probably always thought that Goodspeed, like that happened to him. He's like, it's bullshit that my government's doing it. But
yeah.
So then we have the very end of the movie. Chris Hemsworth, it's sometime later. His wife is very pregnant. They drive to Northumbridge. They're hightailing it out of this ancient, monastery. There's a friar or whatever, like going out yelling at him. He jumps in. The girl drives the lorry away, and he's like, "Babe, you remember that article in the Daily Mail about the Nazi moon base?"
And then smash cut 30 years in the future.
Yep.
You show the exterior of a high security prison.
Belmarsh Prison, I understand.
Belmarsh Prison. And then you come into the cell, and there's Chris Hemsworth with long, greasy, graying hair.
Yeah.
Very clear exactly what's happened to him.
Slack face, dirty face, and then maybe we have the Clock 3 or the Rock 3. The dock.
And, and it's all boat based. Yeah,
we have to figure out where the dock is. But we got plans. 30 years from now. So 30 years. So 30 years from now, you can just keep doing this. Like Sean Connery's dead. Nick Cage, God bless him, still around. He plays the Mason. Hemsworth plays the Goodspeed. And then you find some up and coming American. I guess you'd
maybe
go back
Australian. I mean, we could go all over the world with this series.
That's true.
You know?
But you have to be timing because every epoch you alternate who is the soldier and who is the nerd technician.
Right.
That has the secret capacity for badass resolve in certain spheres of competency. Mm-hmm. And that's the Clock. Written and directed by Guy Ferrari.
I'm impressed.
I'd buy a ticket to that.
Yeah.
I'd buy a ticket for sure.
I feel like it's going to be just as much fun. And it keeps totally within the spirit of the original.
Yeah.
Season of the Cage.